Hey everyone, happy Future Friday. Welcome to Prepare to Go There. I want to prepare you right now. If you do not want to reimagine the way you lead, then stop watching right now. We're going to be talking about a pioneering approach to leadership in an executive context, whether you're in the organizational culture, whether you're leading a community, a movement, a network, a business, whether you're, launching a platform online. The way you show up matters, and the way you disrupt, lead, and influence is going to make a massive Grand Canyon size difference. And so we're going to be talking to specifically executive leaders that want to better understand what it looks like to be a sphere pioneer. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but before that, let me just start with some of the preliminaries and say hi and welcome back to Prepare to Go There. If this is your first time meeting me, my name is Peter Birchfield. I'm an executive coach, and I'm here for your leadership journey. I keep showing up on Future Fridays to encourage you and to give you thoughts that keep you future focused. And so it's been an awesome day thus far. We've had some rain outside, which is really good all around. And I'm excited about this conversation. It's going to help a lot of leaders that have been struggling to find their stride, to really hit their stride with their team, because we hear these conflicting opinions. You need to be more hands-off. You need to be more hands-on. Micromanaging is necessary, but at the same time, empowering is preferred, but not really realistic. And so leaders are stuck in the real world trying to figure out how do they keep things going, put out the fires, keep people happy, make the money, and do the stuff that is needed in their leadership context. And so I want to let you know that there's hope. I want to let you know that with a hands-on approach to your future, you can actually get prepared to go there. And what I want to do is start just with a quick call to action. And we're going to be looking at a project that I made for you, because at the time of this recording, we are going into the back half of the year. 2023 is been going great, but we need to stay sharp, and we need to make sure that we're giving it everything we've got. And a lot of us just need a mid-year reset. Maybe you're like me and you're like, okay, I set good goals. I had good routines and rhythms, but I need some help to stay focused, and I probably need to level up again. And that's okay. That's normal. That's important. That's how you keep earning your leadership, right? Leadership is earned and learned over time. So we've got to remember that future that inspired us to make decisions and to be disciplined and to reach out and get help and put in the future work. It still matters. And I want you to really take inventory as we go on this coaching journey. Think about the things you know you're supposed to do and ask yourself a simple question. Does it still matter? And if it still matters, then you got to give it everything you've got. Does your health still matter? Does your team morale still matter? Does your business still matter? Does your family still matter? I know that these are like basic questions, and hopefully they're no-brainers to answer, but it does matter. The way you show up does matter. And we kind of think that leadership is, just something for the job or just something for the workplace. But to be successful in your life, you have to grow in your own leadership approach. So that way you're showing up in every area of your life, ready to take initiative, to take responsibility, and to take others on the journey with you. That's what leaders do. So, with that in mind, I created a masterclass just for you, and it's all about finding the way to your future self faster. Because, we set out in the beginning of the year with a lot of these exciting ideas about how things could be better. And we're kind of stuck in between the actual self and the aspirational self. And sometimes we're motivated by the way things hurt and the way, things are uncomfortable. And so that can kind of get us going because we're motivated by kind of the way we don't like that pain. And so we push through that pain in order to gain on the other side. Other times, we're inspired by what's possible. We're inspired by this quote actualized identity. And I think there's actually probably a third option that I can talk about later. But needless to say, we start the year, whether it's the beginning of a new year or whether it's your birthday, those are great landmarks in your leadership journey where you say, I want to go big, I want to go far in the landscape of my life and leadership. And what you see from that mountaintop view takes a lot more time in real life when you're actually boots on the ground and you're traversing and you're trying to figure it out, because what you see on the mountaintop is the motivation to go through the ups and downs along the way. What you don't see are all the unexpected challenges, all of the unknown threats, all of the wonderful adventures that are going to be hidden and mixed throughout. So make sure that you actually have a clear process to find the way to your future self faster so you don't get burned out or bogged down and quit. Most people do not actualize those dreams and goals that they had in their heart, those that God put in their heart, because they forget, not just because they quit. Let me say that again because we need to hear it. A lot of leaders have the tools through their life experiences. They know it's good to persevere. They know it's important to not quit. But what we don't realize is that most of our big ideas are forgotten before we arrive there. So we have to have a process that helps us remember what's important, remember the motivation, remember the path, remember the process, remember what didn't work so you don't repeat it. Remember, what you're going to do differently. It's a process of keeping yourself future focused. So that way, to use words of an amazing person, Trophy of Grace, Paul, he said, this one thing I do, forgetting the things that are behind, I press towards the mark. And it is a press. It takes a press to stay future focused. And so that's the work that we have to do as leaders. And a lot of times we just get busy, right? And we get preoccupied with what's going on. And that is the exact way that a trap, a booby trap would get laid in a leader's path and trip them up. It's by, it wouldn't be something obvious, right? It wouldn't be like, oh, here's a debilitating challenge. Why don't you pick me? It's like, no, thanks. It's actually these appealing vices, these seemingly good things, right? The enemy of great is good. And so many times we feel this sense of self-importance because we're being productive or we're being preoccupied with being a leader instead of actually being a practitioner of a leadership journey and learning what it looks like to lead yourself, lead others, and lead through others again and again. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I'm seeing some friends jump on. Let me know in the chat where you're watching from, what you're excited about today, what you're thinking about. This whole project is about helping you stay future focused, practice future present thinking and planning, and then also just find those better ways to future proof your progress right now. So I say find the right way to your future self faster, because there is actually a masterclass that I created for you. And you can access that masterclass in the link below. I'll make sure that's available. But this masterclass is about 90 minutes, give or take. And it's going to walk you through my own pioneering approach to productivity. I've taken years to really understand kind of the ins and outs of the productivity culture. I've tried to learn from the best of it. I've tried to spit out the stuff that's just stupid. And I've really landed on a gospel worldview. When you have a gospel worldview, then you don't try to work for your sense of identity. You just identify with who you are in Christ, and then you get on with the work that He's put in front of you, or I would even say inside of you. So, with that in mind, I wanted a uh, just there were gaps. Let me just say it that way. There were gaps in the productivity space, and actually, it was a gospel worldview, a biblical worldview that helped me to see what genuine, life giving, sustainable productivity looks like. Um, so, anyways, I don't have to go into that too much more, because we got a really encouraging and intriguing journey ahead of us. We're going to be talking about what it looks like to be a sphere pioneer. But I really want to urge you right here at the middle of the year. This is the time where people will quit or continue. This is the time in your year where you will either forget or remember your future. And so you need a reset. You need a tune-up. You need to stay sharp. And that is not a weakness. That's actually what great leaders do. They come back to their why, and then they follow through and they go all the way. So find that masterclass. Great project. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed coaching some executive leaders through it, turned it into the content to make it available for more leaders. And if you have any questions, let me know. But otherwise, let's just dive back into this big idea. So last time we were talking about territory, right? And do you know if you're working with territorial leaders? And I told this story about a blue jay and how this blue jay was kind of semi-harassing my wife and I. We were bringing the groceries in. It was kind of hilarious because we're like, what has gotten into this thing? And it's swooping on us, literally aiming for us. I'm like, this is just wrong. It doesn't even make sense to me. What's going on? I'm in no way. Number one, I didn't even know you're around. Number two, why would I want to come up your tree and attack you? And then it's like fighting back. Little did I know that just by transporting the groceries from our car into our house, that we had set off some sort of invisible alarm system in that blue jay's territory. And something that seems so wild, bizarre, unexpected, actually made a lot of sense when I realized, oh, it's just being territorial. And so in that way, we started a conversation about how leaders feel when their sense of territory is threatened, and how we can overcome kind of that lower level of interaction, being overly territorial, overpowering, and realizing that it's not about the territory in your department or in your business or even in your ministry space. It's really about the sense of territory that you have as a person. Have you grown as a person, and do you have the mindset and the skill sets to offer a lot of space for other people to come in and collaborate well with you? So we're kind of coming off of the heels of that conversation. Jump into that. That was amazing. I had a great uptick with that conversation, and I would love for you to pick up there. But I wanted to continue just a little bit further because I think that was a good way to introduce this idea of territory. But now I wanted to move a little bit further and talk about how do we get to team territories? How will you scale from your dream to a bigger team? Because if your dream is really um, advantageous, if it's really daring, if it's really gonna, go the distance, make a difference, you can't do it alone. You have to see the necessity of teamwork to accomplish that big idea. And many times we have to embrace a bold idea until it becomes the big identity that we're associated with. And so many times, the person who's carrying the message, the messenger, actually becomes a gift for the movement. They actually say, hey, I'm willing to live this way. I'm not going to talk this. I want to be a practitioner, and I want to see this thing get into hearts and minds. And we're actually going to influence people to think differently and then behave differently. So with that, I wanted to just kind of work through the title, work through the topic at hand, which is you're an executive leader and you want to grow your personal capacity as a leader so that you can give others on your team more territory, more responsibility to contribute, to share their ideas, to get involved, to roll up their sleeves and join the work because the mission matters. And that sometimes doesn't scale because you have more ideas than dollars, and you have more ideas than time, and you have more enthusiasm than you may have practical resources. And so you're wondering, how do we actually get momentum at the kind of dream stage so that way it actually sustains the energy in it and it gets to the team stage? And many leaders, it's so ironic, really. Many of the leaders that have a team need to reconnect with their dream. And many leaders that are just kind of developing their dream, they don't know how it's going to translate to a team. And so there really is a gap in clarity. There's a gap in understanding. There's a gap in how this thing is actually going to grow. And I'm learning that. I'm figuring that out, but I want to speak it out loudly and often enough so that way we stay future focused on our own leadership preparedness. Our own leadership preparedness is not just how am I going to be the best leader, but how am I going to provide the mission with the best leaders when I'm not there? Whether I'm in a different building or I'm in a different city or I'm in a different country or I'm literally in a different zone, I want to make sure that the mission that we have, worked towards is being served. And one of the best ways you can serve your community, your company, is to provide it with strong leadership. And a lot of times, there's this burden, this crippling burden to think I have to be kind of like the sole leader, and everything good that's going to happen in this organization has to be connected to some sort of weird, wonky umbilical cord, to me. And that's not the case. And there's actually going to be much more freedom for you to be creative, to be strategic, to be productive, to be relational, to expand yourself as a person without getting boxed into just kind of, the factory style of keeping the business going. Okay, so let me regroup here and get some of my notes going. I'm going to need just a short pause, if you'll bear with me. But if you're interacting in the chat, go ahead and leave a comment right now as you're watching this video. How are you growing yourself as a sphere pioneer? Now you might be saying, Peter, what is a sphere pioneer anyways? Well, I'm going to get my notes out and we're going to talk about it, because it really matters that we know how we actually grow our influence. So there's different ways to approach leadership, and basically I'll say there's the transactional way, which is, most of the time the consumer says, don't know, don't care, just give me what I need. And that consumer mindset is you know just focus on the product, just focus on the service, which is not bad. Then on the other side, you're going to have a more relational style of leadership, and that style is based on trust, it's based on influence, it's based on community and collaboration, and that really will pick up legs and run, and that will really help you to develop your sphere of influence. And so what I wanted to do is start just by sharing the title again, and letting you think through what that title means to us. So the big idea is how to pioneer spheres. So it implies that we're going to figure out some steps or some strategies to do this. And my intention is to make this very, very practical for you. The first thing is you have to be a practitioner. If you want to expand yourself as a leader on an executive level, right? We talked about the giant leadership presence, right? With the ants. If you're going to do those 3 executive skills, that you're going to be able to lead yourself, you're going to keep track of progress, and you're going to hold yourself and others accountable, you have to have that in order to step up and show up as a leader in the space where you occupy. With that in mind, how do we actually expand ourselves on a leadership level to think and act with executive responsibility? Meaning we're going to make decisions, take responsibility for what happens, and follow through. That's a whole different ballgame. And I don't know why we moved the goalpost and we said that a leader is someone with a title, or a leader is the person who gets to boss other people around, or the leader is somehow exempt, that the leader has exemptions that the rest of the team don't have. It's a backwards and it's a counterproductive concept. And so when we say how to, it means now do. So I'm going to be sharing with you encouragement and coaching ideas to help you figure out how to actually build a new sphere of influence that you didn't have before. And that requires this kind of future focus thinking. It requires us to go beyond where we are right now, to grow through the barriers and the limiting beliefs, to submit to a lifestyle of mastery, and not just excuse ourselves, for whatever we're experiencing in the moment. So how to pioneer spheres. Pioneering is different than finding, and there's an element of exploration involved. But when you actually commit to pioneer a sphere, what we're not saying is you're just trying to fit into a pre-existing niche. Okay. And so that's kind of the first thing that we have to feel is a niche is not the same thing as a sphere. And I know there's a lot of people on the internet talking about riches in the niches, and they might be right. That's great. And there are really positive applications of finding and leveraging a niche to get your message out to the right group of people. But a niche is generally going to be topical in nature. It's going to be focused on an idea. It's going to be focused on a subject. And there will be a tribe of people around that. But a niche is not the same thing as your sphere. Because when you're looking for your niche, you're just trying to fit in to what other people are already doing and what other people are finding. And in my view, that's fine, because you can be serving others, you can go to them, you can bring them ideas and solutions, but you're already behind and you're not tapping into or unlocking the inherent influence that you already have. And so to me, this is really a matter of stewardship. While you are wandering around this future frontier looking for the perfect niche that's going to give you everything you say you want and desire, what are you doing with the current sphere of influence you already have? What are you doing with the actual people that want to see you, want to be in proximity with you, want to hear what you have to say? They're expecting good things from you. They receive and reciprocate what you share, and then they also encourage you to keep going. That's your sphere. And if you didn't catch it, that's the acronym, So go back and listen and say, okay, who's in my sphere? It's the people who already there. They already want to see you. They want to be in proximity with you. They want to hear what you have to say. They expect great things from you. They will reciprocate, and they want to encourage you to keep going. So what are you doing right now? Why aren't you serving the real sphere of influence that you have, instead of fabricating some ideal niche that you somehow kind of cooked up in some weird laboratory? Like, you got to be genuine to the gifts and the callings that are already entrusted to you. It is a matter of stewardship. Okay. So niches are good. Don't get me wrong. You can leverage a niche, but I would say your niche is going to be project based. It's going to be a goal. Like, you're working on something that you want to, and you're trying to find the right niche that's going to fit that project. And when you understand a sphere of influence, you can operate in multiple niches. Like, go be awesome. We jump in that niche and the other niche, and go help people find some better ideas for education, and find some better ideas for families, and find some better ideas for businesses, and find some better ideas in your local government, and find some better ideas online and marketing and business. And go into all of those fields of work. But at the end of the day, your life is going to have a measure of influence, right? A metron. You're going to have a measure of relational influence. And if you steward it well, that relational influence actually takes on a healthy sense of authority. And what I mean by that, I don't mean overpowering, I mean empowering. Healthy authority is meant to protect and empower. And in the cases you can't empower, you protect. And in the cases you can't protect, you empower. And so, leaders who care about their people, leaders who care about their customers, their community, their team members, they want to think, how am I protecting them from things they don't know or things they're not ready for? How am I preparing them to excel? How am I preparing them to grow in those executive skills we talked about? How am I preparing them to collaborate well with other great leaders, so that way they have an exponentially better chance of succeeding, instead of suffering on their own and trying to figure things out on their own? That's why I want to urge people, you already have a sphere of influence. Whether you found your niche or not, you already have a sphere of influence. So don't neglect what you already have. Don't neglect who's already waiting to follow, to receive value and influence from you. It would actually be really sad if you wasted a lot of time trying to find something. It's like I'm rabbit trailing here. There's a story that I grew up hearing called Acres of Diamonds, and I believe it's a book. But the big idea of the book was Acres of Diamonds. There's this guy, and he got this desire to go find diamonds, right? Go figure. He heard about diamonds. He wanted to go find some diamonds. He went all over the world, never found any diamonds. And he literally died unfulfilled. He never found the diamonds he was looking for. He used all of his treasure, all of his wealth, all of his resources, never found any of the diamonds. They had the funeral service, and then one of the little boys that was, participating with family and friends kind of trailed off on that guy's farm or estate or whatever. And he went down to the riverbed. He started throwing rocks into the riverbed. And then he started noticing that the water was glowing or glistening. And, upon a little further investigation, he realized the whole riverbed was filled with the diamonds. And, I heard that story as a kid. So if anything, just take it as an anecdote or a metaphor. You definitely have to fact check it. But the point was made simple, right? That don't waste your life looking for something that's already in your backyard. And you've got to learn, how are you going to leverage the actual sphere of influence that you have? You say, well, I don't have any influence. I don't have a sphere. I don't even know what a sphere is. Well, then you need to wake up and look around, because your sphere is the 360 impact that you are making through your actions, interactions, and reactions every single day. So if you don't know that you have influence, then start there. Start there and realize that the influence you have and that the influence you already has matters. Okay, so we're going to be talking about that. I'm just working through the title and sharing thoughts as we go. But we're also going to kind of break into this new idea, which is how do you pioneer multiple spheres of influence? Can one person have multiple spheres of influence? And to be a sphere pioneer, you actually have to see the power of people's spheres of influence and learn how to leverage them, force multiply them, collaborate them well, so that way you can actually gain more territory. So that is a clue that we're going to use to gain a sense of sphere authority. Again, not in the sense of overpowering, but in the sense of empowering. And so it's going to be a wild ride. We're still only kind of breaking in. I want you to be committed to think through this, because a lot of people are wasting their time, and they're getting really discouraged with the results they have, simply because they're not willing to focus on themselves and then help others to develop in personal and practical ways as well. So let's see. Pioneering new spheres of influence. So important. We're not just talking about a pre-existing niche that it's like you have to somehow find. We're talking about something that you need to stop thinking that you're waiting on and realize that this is something that is waiting on you, right? You may be waiting around to find the right niche, but your current sphere of influence is waiting on you. And the way you pioneer that sphere of influence is going to create the context for your future growth, opportunities, success, and on and on. Let's see what else we find. Okay, so let's actually get into some context to help us better understand this. You'll get all the best ideas from the Bible, literally. So this is something that the Apostle Paul wrote. Obviously, this is in the Message paraphrase, but he's writing to them. He says, we're not, understand, putting ourselves in a league with those who boast that they're our superiors. Man, if the leadership culture needs to hear anything, they need to realize that leadership does not make them superior. They need to hear that leadership actually makes them more accountable. We wouldn't dare do that, he says, but in all this comparing and grading and competing, they quite miss the point. Man, so true. There are good leaders, bad leaders. There are absentee leaders. There are evil leaders. Leadership is not something to gloat over. Leadership is a function. Leadership is just a skill set. And I believe the more people we can get into the leadership game, in other words, they know how to lead themselves. And then when they know that, they level up, they can lead others because they have become the proof of concept, and then they can lead through others. And that's really where we start, understanding the importance and the impact of being a sphere pioneer. But all the while, people that are just trying to chase and charge with their own sense of self-importance, they're missing the point. They're missing the point. And it's a very roller coaster ride for people in the leadership space to, get some sort of role, get some sort of opportunity, taste some sort of authority, only to be miserably disappointed when they find out how volatile that actually is and how unsustainable that actually feels. It's far, far better to go slower, to put in the work, to prepare privately, so that way when you show up, you actually show up ready. He continues and he says, we aren't making outrageous claims here. I love that line. That really speaks of the essence of something that I think a lot of people miss. When you do preparation, your confidence goes through the roof. And it's because your competence has been proven. When you have real competence in your field of work and leadership, it doesn't matter what the challenge is or who the challengers are. You are going to hold your ground. You are going to fight right. You're not fighting out of selfish ambition, but out of a real sense of, purpose and submission to that higher purpose. So when he says we're not making outrageous claims here, what he's basically saying is, yeah, just try me. He's saying, go ahead, test me. See if I don't really have the authority to set things in order, to put you in your place. He's not saying, oh, I'm a nobody. He knows exactly who he is. And many times leaders get stuck, specifically the people, that I get to work with. They're going to be kind of zigging and zagging in between these two big influences of, a religious spirit or a political spirit. And basically that just means a religious spirit oftentimes wants to control and make you feel less than you are, right? To feel inferior, either because of your lack of religious zeal or compliance to some sort of ethical code or moral code, or it's self-induced in many ways, but it's a sense of unworthiness. And then in many times the political spirit is going to be kind of like this injection of superiority, where you're just intoxicated by this idealistic version of yourself that's superhuman and better than other people and deserving of. And many times people, they puff up because of rights or because of wrongs. And if it's divisive and if it's combative and if it's aggressive in the sense of, violent aggression, then it's not going to be productive. It's not going to have lasting peace, lasting results. So, on both ends, people, they bless their heart, they can really get stuck. So what the writer here is describing is something very different than those two mindsets. He's not feeling inferior. He's not feeling superior. He knows who he is in the grace of God, and he's actually very confident in that. He knows he can accomplish what is in front of him. He knows that he can actually govern well in the sense of leadership. I'm not talking that he's running for mayor. I'm saying he knows he has a sphere of influence, and he's going to wield that influence wisely to lead people into human flourishing, to lead them into a productive, constructive lifestyle for the sake of others. They're not going to be self-imploding when they get done with this leader. Instead, they're going to be fired up about doing more good and making a bigger difference and moving towards that hopeful future. So I love this because a lot of times leaders, I think in a reaction to some of the abuses or excesses of leadership, they cower, right? They kind of tuck their head down and they don't want to make eye contact with any conflict. And in reality, the writer is saying here, no, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna put up with any of that. I'm going to, whatever sphere of influence I have, it's because God put me in this sphere of influence. And I really want to urge you, whatever sphere of influence you have, it's not by accident. And so you're accountable to that sphere of influence. You're accountable to course correct. You're accountable to encourage. You're accountable to keep going and to work with others to make things better. So there's a lot more I could say there, but let's just keep moving. Hopefully you're picking up some of the things I'm putting down. He says, we're sticking to the limits of what God has set for us. Now, this is wild, because I think a lot of times people, they say, well, Bible verses belong in spiritual buildings. And that's so silly. And, respectfully, very moronic to think that Bible verses only belong in spiritual buildings, because I think the Bible just nailed all of us, just spoke to every single one of us and said, hey, you have a sphere of influence. You got to be using it. God gave it to you. Use it wisely. You're going to be accountable for it. And so when you understand leadership is not just a spiritual, Christian leadership, spiritual leadership, which is what a lot of people might stereotype just what's being described here in the Bible. But I think the Bible kind of knows what's up. I think the Bible can speak to any field in our life. I think it has it has answers and solutions about anything and everything. And it really does have the transforming quality that our world needs. So the point here is, if you want to look at it again with me, it says we're sticking to the limits of what God has set for us. And there's no question that those limits reach to and include you. So what am I saying? There's spheres of influence that are outside of just the spiritual context of a church, even though the Bible's talking about this. The Bible's not just talking about people that are leaders of churches. It's talking about leaders in many areas, all right? Many fields, many spheres. So what does that mean? Practically, personally, it means we need leadership in a lot of areas. We're going to need great leaders in education. We're going to need great leaders in science and technology. We're going to need great leadership gifts. I'm not even talking about just the more spiritual debates that people love to have online and get views and add money from. And there's no dig in that. I'm very, very grateful for everybody who's out there trying to help people and lift people up. But I'm here to encourage leaders and to let leaders know that your sphere of influence matters, And if you actually stepped into that sphere of influence like it was a responsibility from God, you might show up differently. You wouldn't show up feeling inferior, and you wouldn't show up feeling superior. You would just show up and do your job, which is go be a great leader so other people don't suffer. And they don't suffer from the absence of leadership, or they don't suffer from the abuse of leadership, but they actually show up from the presence of a strong, willing leader. Not a leader who's perfect, but a leader who's been preparing. Okay. So we need leaders, and just in principle, we need great leadership in a lot of different areas. We need great leadership. Let me say it that way. We need great leadership in medicine. We need great leadership in education. We need great leadership even in our entertainment. And you say, well, what does a great leader look like? It's someone who is like very innovative and creative and thoughtful, and not just ripping off all the originals because of the copyrights. It's someone who's actually adding life and value to people and not just tearing them down, among other things, I'm sure. So we're getting to this idea of territory because it's not just some new idea. It's not some new age idea either. There's actually a biblical precedent for it. The writer here says, we're not moving into someone else's territory. So when we talk about being a sphere pioneer, it realizes that you have a God-given sense of territory, right? You have to take responsibility for your thoughts, for your life, for the culture of your heart. You have to take responsibility for your actions, interactions, reactions. You are a person. Newsflash. You're a real person, and you're going through real life, and you have real challenges, but you don't have to suffer in isolation. You can actually draw from strength that's beyond you, and find love, and and live in an upright way. But at the end of the day, you have to make that choice, right? You have to choose to want that help, to go for it. And if you live by that principle, then other people need to live by that principle as well. In other words, you can defend your own sense of personal boundaries, and no one else has the right to take away your joy, take away your peace, take away your confidence, take away your focus. I know that there's so much pain out there, and that so many people, even on the leadership level, have been used, abused, right, and wronged. But at the end of the day, you'll find a lot of healing and empowerment when you realize that you have God-given responsibility and you step into that. Okay. Now, if that matters to you, and you're telling other people, hey, you really don't have keys to my house, you really don't have the right to come in and overpower me. You don't have the right to bully me around. Okay, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm not going to feel inferior. I'm not going to feel superior, but I'm going to be strong in the grace that the Lord's given me. If that matters enough for you to defend, then you have to fight for that right for other people as well, right? You have to fight right. I'm not saying fight wrong. I'm saying fight the right way. But you got to stand up and you got to speak up, even when it's inconvenient, even when it matters to other people, because it does matter. It matters for all of us. I mean, if we didn't have that kind of way of thinking, way of living, any of us, could just be imposed on and invaded. And I'm going to throw out this really seemingly random example, but hopefully it'll get the point across and either totally derail the conversation or take us into a new area together. But when I was thinking about this sense of territory, I couldn't help but think of like literal territories here, because a lot of this we're talking about people and relationships and the way we work and relate together. But the writer here is saying we're not moving into someone else's territory. I love that line because if you're going to build a healthy leadership culture, you have to respect territory. You have to respect your sense of territory, their sense of territory, and that is counterintuitive, right? That's very counterintuitive for people to think, well, the leader doesn't have, you know, unwarranted access to anything and everywhere, and the answer is no. Why? Because they're still people, right? And so you don't realize that the person you may be bossing around and pushing around and intimidating and you know mistreating today, they could actually level up, and in a few years they could buy you out. They could become your boss. I mean, you have no idea what people are capable of. You have no idea what people can become in the grace of God. So you really do have to fear the Lord and respect other people. You gotta really practice respect. And for whatever reason, it's tough for leaders because they have goofy thoughts and they think that they're somehow exempt from all this. Um, but I was thinking of World War II and the history of World War II. And if you've ever heard about, how World War II went down, um, it's wild to think about the way, you know, Hitler's forces just blitzkrieged, right? And they just lightning struck all these lightning strikes on all these different territories. And they would just come thrashing and crashing in with so much speed and aggression. And it was literally disabling. And it was shocking and traumatic. And I mean, we all would say now, looking back, hey, not good, really, really bad. But that happens many, many times over in concept in the workplace where, people are bashing through personal boundaries. They're crashing into people's sense of territory. You don't have the right to take over somebody else's area, someone else's department, someone else's realm of jurisdiction. And it gets really hard to deal with because there's so much hierarchy, there's so many antics, there's a real theater of war involved in much of the corporate space, but also just in leadership in general. And we forget that we're dealing with people. We're dealing with other folks that have really spent a lot of time and effort to develop something and grow something with their own relational equity. They've invested their time, they've invested their thoughts and their passions and their creativity to try to create something. And if we cannot see that, then we may not be the right people to lead there. And so it really matters that you honor personal boundaries, that you can recognize where territories are even within your team. I'm using a little bit of a metaphor here, but I hope you're catching it, because if you don't know how to respect territories, then you'll have no path to expand territory in the future. Because when you respect the power of somebody's sphere of influence, it can exponentially grow in a very, very fast way, even faster than the blitzkrieg thing, in theory, because there's no more land, out there. But in the world of people and relationships and creativity and prosperity and abundance, it really is infinite. And so people have the ability to expand and even supersede your expectations. They'll blow your minds with what they're capable of. And if we'll respect people's sense of responsibility and territory, not trying to overpower them, but in a respectful way, protect and empower them, then eventually what can happen is we can leverage mutually beneficial relationships, and we can collaborate well with people based on trust, not based on um, coercion, and we'll actually experience force multiplication that we didn't have before. We'll experience disruption in a way we didn't know was possible. Positive disruption, what I call collaborative disruption, or another way I'll refer to it is as a disruptive collaboration. So that's really what we're moving towards. Pioneering leaders are not trying to be productive. They're trying to be disruptive. That's their job. A pioneering leader is not the one who's just showing up trying to go home with the most points. They're not even playing that game. And so if you're just trying to go in and be super combative and you're just trying to score up as many points as you can, then the way you would do that absolutely is you would cross boundaries, you would break into other team territories, and you would try to take credit for other people's work. You try to take the best people from those teams, you try to take the best ideas from and you would try to subvert and sabotage all the way throughout. And I'm telling you, that is a stupid way to play the long game. There's no long game in that leadership approach. So I really want to urge you to think differently about the way you lead. Reimagine the way you lead and see that pioneering a sphere of influence, nobody can stop you from that. Nobody can even touch something that doesn't exist yet. It's just created in the heart and mind of your own relational experiences. So when you show up, you have the potential to create something new. When you show up, you have the potential to inspire new ideas and new insights that other people didn't even have. When you show up, you actually are creating territory and you're giving it away because you realize, to use this metaphor, you realize that you can't lose when you give. You can't lose when you empower. You can't lose when you help others win. You can't lose when you're thinking this way. So let's get back and to the big ideas here, and we'll land the plane. It says, we were already there with you, weren't we? We were the first ones to get there with the message of Christ, right? So how can there be any question of overstepping our bounds by writing or visiting you? And that's so good. Basically, the application that I want to share with us today is, when you have a sphere of influence, nobody can take that away from you. You can clearly see the evidence of your own example, your own encouragement, your own empowerment in that group of people. And it's like your own fingerprint, it's yours. And so you don't have to feel threatened. You don't have to feel stuffy when other leaders are showing up, like, okay, I really am uneasy. I really don't want people to take my stuff or push me out or whatever. I think you have to realize that even if they did push you out, you'll go somewhere else and you'll pioneer another sphere. You'll always have that ability because you are a sphere pioneer. And that ability to pioneer spheres is a recognition that you can show up into any field of life and that you can resource and rally people in a remarkable way. And so a sphere pioneer is not really trying just to carve out their own little space on top of the, king of the hill, so to speak. They have such a expansive capacity. And I don't think we give these pioneering leaders enough credit. I mean, just for example, I'm trying to race to the finish line here, but I keep having insights for you. But there are people, they literally show up and they create wealth. They create wealth in all of these new industries, new places, new spaces. What is that? Okay, that's someone who understands how to pioneer a sphere. It's not someone who's like fighting and kicking and clawing to kind of get their little share out of a niche. All right. I'm not saying niches are bad again, but I am saying let's play a different game right now. And let's realize that we're here in whatever field you're in, whatever industry you're in, whatever field of life you're in, you're here to pioneer, right? I got to say it loud so somebody can hear it. Let's remember we're playing a different game. Pioneering leaders know wherever we are, whatever field of life we're in, we're here to pioneer. And that is a different mindset, but it'll absolutely take you to new and needed places. He says, we're not barging in on the rightful work of others, interfering with their ministries, or you could just say their leadership or their work or whatever, demanding a place in the sun with them. No, what we're hoping for, this is the real motivation of a sphere pioneer. What we're hoping for is that as your lives grow in faith, you'll play a part within our expanding work. See, that's why I believe pioneering leaders can't lose, because that risk-taking, relational approach, willing to take responsibility, absolutely. But they're relational, they're risk takers, they take responsibility, they're resilient, they're resourceful. Right? That's kind of like the code, the culture code for a pioneering leader. They take responsibility, they take risk, they function relationally, they're resilient, they're resourceful. That combo in the leadership space is going to exponentially excel for pioneering leaders. It's so different than any other version or hierarchy of leadership out there. So I really want to urge you, don't be discouraged if somebody's getting territorial around you, because the very nature of what you do is to be disruptive. Okay. Other leaders, their goal, their game is, how can I be the most productive? So it makes sense. They're gonna cross over lines. They're gonna grab and take. They're gonna try to amass. They're gonna collect and all that. But your primary role as a pioneering leader is to be disruptive. Now, you'll be very productive after that, because there's breakthrough technology, there's breakthrough insights, there's breakthrough partnerships. But before that, you've got to take a look at the landscape in your leadership context and say, hey, something's not working. Something's not healthy. Something's not optimal. And it's not going to happen with just an addiction to addition. But we've got to be willing to prune back so that way we can multiply again. And pioneering leaders can see that. They're able to navigate and create the future of what they do. And so whether you're in software, or whether you're an empowering stay-at-home parent, or whether you're in ministry, or whether you're creating content, whatever you're doing, your primary focus is, okay, can I facilitate strategic disruption here, collaborative disruption here? And what that's going to do is you're actually expanding territory. You're not just fighting over a small space that was pre-existing. So let's finish up. The mindset of this pioneering leader is really astounding. And so we'll all still be within the limits God sets as we proclaim the message in countries beyond Corinth, but we have no intention of moving in on what others have done and taking credit for it. Awesome. If you want to claim credit, claim it for God. What you say about yourself means nothing in God's work. It's what God says about you that makes the difference. Wow, so good. So good. So I'm going to look at my notes here and make sure that we've got all the takeaways, and I really appreciate it. I love how we got a friend in the comments. He says, "Software guy here." That's right. We need leadership in so many different spheres, y'all. We need leadership in so many different fields. And so this idea that we're all kind of clamoring to the handful of leadership positions at the top that we can all readily see, like, don't even fight for what's existing. Go be creative. Go pioneer something new. Go start something fresh. Go be something refreshing. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is we're just going to have this implosion of leadership acumen, and we're going to wonder what happened on the recesses, on the margins of where life and movements really happen. So empowering others, sending them out with, a sense of confidence and competence. There's a lot in that. This can get really practical, but for Future Friday's sake, I wanted you to think a little differently about the situation. So I wanted you to see that, there's a difference between a niche and a sphere. Don't waste time just trying to fit into a niche when you already have a sphere of influence that can be stewarded, that can be multiplied. And even the mindset for sphere pioneers, or just these kind of leaders, the first goal is not, okay, how can I be the most productive today? It's actually, where can I leverage disruption? What is the new thought? Where's the future here? And how can I stay future focused? Because otherwise you'll just get in a rut. And it doesn't matter how much work you got done. If it's already outdated, and was it really productive? So pioneering leaders, they realize that what they do is actually by default or by nature disruptive. And so that's where all of these territorial issues come into play. They're saying, okay, I get it. I'm probably disruptive. My ideas are probably disruptive. My thoughts, my interactions, and my creativity, or my productivity, or my strategy, or the way I want to build teams, things that you take for granted, things that are so normal, so obvious to you, are going to be very different for other people. And that's okay. And so you have to be confident in what you're bringing and the value you're bringing. And you've got to be really resolute in your own motive to say, I'm not coming at this like I'm trying to blitzkrieg into somebody else's team territory. I'm coming at this because I want to expand more territory through the God-given rights or responsibilities that people have to steward their own sphere of influence. I'm actually going to infuse encouragement and help into your own sphere of influence. And so it's through a collaborative approach, not a combative approach, that we grow. So I told you at the beginning, I just want to make sure you remember, be prepared to reimagine the way you lead, because it is going to look different. I want to challenge you to practice being a sphere pioneer. Practice being a sphere pioneer. Be grateful for the sphere of influence you already have. Show up and shine there. Really show up and shine in your sphere of influence. The very definition, sphere, means metron, right? It is a measure, a standard. So it means it can be measured, it can be identified, it can be seen. What's it seen by? It's seen by the evidence of your own example. It's seen by the language and the values that you've already imported into that place. And it means that you've got fruit in that place, that people, there's stuff that is working there that other people can see. Okay, so it's like you are, there's no way that you can be denied from your sphere of influence. That's all I'm trying to say. So practice being a sphere pioneer. How do you actually pioneer a sphere? I'm going to tell you the 3 steps. How do you actually pioneer a sphere? And not just one, but more than one. You disrupt, you lead, and you influence. That's how you pioneer a sphere, a new sphere. That's how you pioneer more than one sphere. That's how you can be a sphere pioneer that has overlapping spheres. That's how you can get involved in, software, medicine, investing, youth mentoring. I mean, the lines we draw sometimes on culture or on cities or even on ourselves is really silly, because when you understand the way it's an ecosystem, there's so many factors that are overlapping and intertwined. It's wild. And so then we think, well, we are made to be, integrated people, multidimensional or at least multifaceted people. Why wouldn't culture be the same way? And so we've got to go to the heart of people and go to the heart of culture and go to the heart of cities and see that to pioneer spheres, it looks like you got to be willing to disrupt what's normal there, lead in a new way there, and then influence others to do the same, to continue, lead through others. So another way to say it would be disrupt yourself. You have to be willing to disrupt yourself, disrupt your own routines, because to pioneer a new sphere means that you're not trying to fit into something that's categorically been there. To disrupt yourself means you have to be willing to reimagine yourself. I'll use this example only as such, mainly just for inspiration, not for instruction. But, I'm inspired by Jesus. I'm inspired by the life of Jesus. And he says, you have to pick up your cross and you have to be willing to die daily. I know I'm pairing 2 different verses here. Pick up your cross and follow me. That's what the Lord says. And then also Paul says that you have to be willing to die daily, right? And so many times we think that that's such like a hard thing, bad thing. And I'm like, oh man, that is the best news I ever heard. Because I'm the guy who needs new mercies. I'm the guy who is by nature very habitual. I'm the guy who, if left alone, is going to literally eat the same breakfast over and over again and have no new thoughts and have no sense of inspiration or imagination about what's possible or important for myself. And so I do need to die daily to who I thought I should be. I need to die daily to my own perceptions about, kind of where I've been in my own limited thinking. And I need to reimagine God's grace in my life. And I say, wow, man, God's better than I think. And the work of the cross was better than I thought. And it gives me access to so much more than I thought. Just a whole new quality of life. And so you have to be willing to disrupt yourself. Disrupt yourself so that way you can show up differently. Disrupt yourself so you can add value in places you thought you didn't belong before. Disrupt yourself so that way you have confidence where it really belongs and not in the external things that up. Disrupt yourself so that way you're not entitled by your title. Disrupt yourself so that way you can prove to yourself and everyone else around you that the preparation you put in private really is worth something. That you're not inferior, you're not superior, you show up and you know how to lead. So disrupting yourself is that first step to being in a pioneer sphere. And then you say, I'm willing to lead. I'm going to lead here. I'm going to lead in this space. I'm going to show up as a leader. I lead myself, I lead others, I lead through others. And when you are willing to lead, not just, leak, not just leech, I'm having fun there, but you've got to be willing to lead and be consistent and to be intentional, right? And that's why you need to get the masterclass. Find the right way to your future self faster, because so many people don't know how they're really leading their life. I love the quote. I heard it from John Maxwell. I think he quoted somebody else, but most people just accept their lives. They don't actually lead their lives. And that's sad, because you really can, and you really can be a leader in your own right. And then the last step is to influence, right? That's the long game. That's the influence. That's the kind of that higher level. Because when you figure out how to empower other people instead of overpowering people and trying to take over their territory, their sense of territory, through, a combative, controlling posture, but you actually have a collaborative, even just like a coaching ethos, and you model that, then you really do move beyond your own limits. You are leading beyond limits now. You're leading beyond your own limitations. And so many times we think as leaders that we're fine and everybody else is the problem. And actually leaders can sometimes, not see that. There will be blind spots, and we need healthy supportive systems to help us see and hear things. And if you want to lead beyond limits, you have to start with your own limits. And one of the easiest and the most effective ways to lead beyond your own limits is to figure out what are the characteristics of healthy, strong, capable leadership. How do I practice them? Not just so that way I can copyright them myself, but so that I can duplicate those characteristics through the own laboratory of my own life. But then I can be confident that I have learned mastery. I have gained mastery through submission, through sacrifice, through submission to the master's process, a process of mastery. And when you have the confidence that you know what that looks like and you've experienced it, this is not just some armchair quarterback stuff. This is not just theory, but you're a real practitioner of this stuff. You know leadership on that level that you can actually share it and give it away to other people. You can be unstoppable. You're empowering other people to go further than you. You're influencing others. I was reading today 2 Samuel 23, and it's basically like a tribute to the end of David's life. He was, King David. He took down the giant, and he did other things. He wasn't a perfect person, but he was actually mentioned as a man after God's heart. And I think what's amazing is that he finishes out kind of this tribute to his life just by sharing the exploits of all of his team and the mighty men. And if you say, well, is that about David or is it about others? It's like, yeah, both. That's a sphere pioneer. It's like, well, which is it? It's like, that's the point. They could not do what they did without you. And they are going to do things without you that you could never do on your own. So everybody wins and nobody can take credit for it. And then God just gets credit for that. So that's amazing to me just to think about, kind of as a reflection here at the end. Let me see if there's anything else to share. Yep, I'm here to pioneer with you. Okay, so I'm landing the plane. I want to thank y'all so much for being a part of this Future Friday live stream. I'm here for you. I'm here to pioneer with you. A lot of leaders are so preoccupied with the work and the responsibilities of life and business or whatever you're doing that you don't really know even where to begin to prepare for your next phase now. And so I've really dedicated this chapter of my life to help leaders on that journey. And so I would be honored to interact with you in a coaching environment, there's some opportunities that you can check out. The first one I want you to check out is the masterclass that I mentioned at the beginning. It's called the Right Way Masterclass, and it's going to teach you my pioneering approach to productivity. You're going to learn how to find the right way to your future self faster, so you're not wasting time and energy figuring all this stuff out. But there's actually a very efficient and effective way to be productive from the inside out, where you actually prosper in your soul, and then it translates into every other area of your life. So I really want to urge you, go find that masterclass and get it and get started with it. It is a companion project to my flagship course, Pioneer of the Year. So you can always check out that course. It's going to help you develop a clear, active life plan and then leverage what we've been talking about, being a sphere pioneer, right? A leader that prepares other leaders. And you're going to do that with Pioneer of the Year. Also, I offer executive coaching, and I also help executive teams with their team training. So please just check it out. You can find the links below. In the meantime, stay awesome. Have a great weekend. Make sure you actually get some time to decompress, to be with your family, to rest, to digest, to do the things that are associated with your human life as well, because you're an awesome human, and you need to know that you can rest even when you feel unfulfilled or unfinished. So make sure that you do that for yourself and others. At some point this weekend, there's a lot of free content, hundreds of hours of free content that I've produced that you can check out to encourage you on your leadership journey. And in the meantime, remember, you're going places, so prepare to go there. I'll see you in the next live stream next Future Friday at 11:30 Central Standard Time. See you then.